Welcome to Paging the Pod with James Wong.
And Anderson Mock, and today we're here with Dr. Boerkoel.
Hello, I'm Dr. Boerkoel. I'm currently a practicing medical geneticist in the Provincial Medical Genetics Program in British Columbia. I moved here in 2006 from Baylor College of Medicine and have continued practicing medical genetics within the province since my arrival.
Okay, thank you so much. So our first question would be why did you choose to pursue medicine?
Uh, you might like it or not, it was an accident. I had actually been thinking, I had studied philosophy and theology in undergrad and was intent on pursuing a career in historical anthropology when one of the mentors or career guidance counselors suggested medicine.
Was there kind of like a spark that, apart from your counselor, that made you decide that maybe counseling was the right idea? Medicine was the right idea.
Um, no, I mean, there's a lot of overlap and between medicine and anthropology. And understanding health and disease is really an anthropologic problem that's defined in each culture differently.
Can you walk us through your medical journey, just your undergrad and medical school as well as residency, and why you chose those programs?
Yeah, so upon looking at medical school, I was trained in the US, and medical school at that time and continues today to be relatively expensive.
Yeah.
So when you come from a poor family, you have to figure out how you're going to pay for that. So for myself, I happened to get a scholarship from the US government to cover my training in medicine as well as in graduate school. So I spent the first period of time, almost 10 years, training for the PhD and the MD at Case Western Reserve University. From there, I was really not pleased with either career option and went to the National Institutes of Health. And there is when I made my decision of how I would pursue medical practice. So that arose out of a patient that I saw there, a young woman who had been referred for a progressive deterioration of her muscles. And in the end, using various basic science tools, we were able to identify the cause of her disease as well as potential therapies. Upon giving the woman the diagnosis, she started crying and gave me a big hug. And I thought it was because I was giving her a death sentence that she would suffocate to death. But in what she actually said was, "Thank you so much for telling me my children will never get this." It was that really determined the rest of my career, which was to practice medicine, solving the problems that others have not been able to solve for each patient as they came to me.
So going back, what do you wish you knew before medical school and residency and just your journey?
So, in part, you have to decide who you are and why you're pursuing what you're pursuing. So, for me, the pursuit of medicine and the research that I do in conjunction with it is largely about solving problems that have not been solved in standard of care. So that's largely my function in British Columbia, is to see patients that others have been unable to find the answers for. And it's been really the driving force in my career. Now, what do you wish you knew ahead of time? Is that's very difficult to fund. Very few people can afford to pay you privately for that. Very few public health systems support that. and research grants are not awarded upon solving N of 1 problems.
Can you walk us through like what your typical day would look like, or just what you've been working on for the past year? Any major changes?
So my typical day is like I don't see that many patients. So any given patient could take anywhere from a few minutes to 80 hours to work up. And then some of the workup continues on for 2, 3, 4, 5 years as one tries to move various research components ahead to find answers. So the typical week, I see a relatively small number of patients, maybe 12 in a week, and some obviously deal with quickly, others accumulate to keep me busy in between all the patients.
So when it comes to personalized medicine, there may be cases where it could take a longer time. What kind of like pushes you to, work hard and push yourself through those hours to get it done?
I think in part it goes back to the original reason I decided to go into medicine, right? I went into medicine to solve mysteries. And you have to be driven to want to do that. The other piece is when you solve the mystery, there's an obligation to publish it so that medical knowledge advances. And so it's that I think I like doing, I enjoy. It appeals to me intellectually. And so I think that's what sustains me through the many hours.
We looked up that you're the president of Alamaya Health. Could you just talk about what you do there and what made you create that?
Okay, so maybe I should start a little earlier. So in 2006, why did I move here from Baylor College of Medicine? Which was one reason was to found the Rare Disease Foundation. At that time, there was a missing component in society, which is if I am the only one in the world or the only one in my region with a diagnosis, how do I get support? And what didn't exist was a foundation that provided support around needs rather than around a diagnosis. So that was, and then the second piece was if you're seeing these N of 1 patients and trying to solve their problem, how do you get the funding to do it when it's not financed either by the public health system or an insurer? So that required the development of microfinance. So the two things that we did with the Rare Disease Foundation were implement microfinance for physicians to help their patients, as well as the support groups for patients themselves. Moving on from that, one would say then how do you scale translational research so that it's cost effective and efficient? That led to a few proposals here that didn't gain traction with philanthropists, but the NIH Undiagnosed Diseases Program was being set up at that time. And they asked me to develop that for the United States. And that ended up being moving from the intramural NIH program to the Undiagnosed Diseases Network across the United States, and then Undiagnosed Diseases International, that when it went global. From there, I moved to the Imagenetics program in Sioux Falls, South Dakota at Sanford Health to test not only scaling of translational research, but scaling of the implementation of precision medicine in general practice. So what we did was genotype 200,000 people and deploy the genotype results into family practice and general practice and develop the infrastructure to support the physicians in the use of that information. Then coming back here, when I had set that program up, I came back full time to Vancouver and began studying the patients that were being referred to me. And so not only were there these patients which were diagnostic conundrums, there were also those that had variants of uncertain significance on genetic testing. There were patients who had testing in which a comprehensive test had been run, but technically it wouldn't pick up the cause of the person's disease. So I began asking a question of how could you exhaust genomic space with a single test and provide the most comprehensive answer. That led to the development of LMI Health after several years of collaboration with the Genome Sciences Center here in Vancouver. So LMI Health is really about solving, one, how do you deliver a test that is comprehensive and has exhausted genomic knowledge and space for precision medicine? Two, how do you deploy it in the location that the patient's getting care and not require the sample to be sent away? Because when you send things out, it results in a brain drain. So that's really the core principles of the company, and we're doing that in North America and Singapore.
How do you come up with the name Alamaya Health?
Dreaming. It means nothing, and it just happens to have a good sound to it.
So how do you see LMI Health and just in general your field change in possibly the next few years? Do you think there will even be big changes or?
Healthcare is evolving faster than it's probably ever evolved in my lifetime. And largely that's because of computation. So artificial intelligence is and will radically change medical practice.
How do you think like AI will AI be a big impact in your field, or do you think
Already is. So if you just pause for a second and you say, I'll ask a ridiculous question. Did you ever go to the grocery and leave with the wrong mother? Probably
no,
not. Doesn't matter how
yeah.
many mothers are in the grocery. You can always find yours. She's unique. Go to a concert. Did you leave with the wrong friends? No, it doesn't matter how many thousands of people are there. So the moment you pause and think about that, you realize there's no normal human genome. Every genome is unique to itself. So if we were to sequence a genome for an individual, we expect 3 to 5 million variants. And now, how do you distill that into predisposition to disease, cause of disease? It requires an intelligence that's greater than the human mind. And AI is already, every platform now is using AI to distill that. Then you say, okay, now I have these variants that AI has distilled. What additional streams of information do I need that have to be merged in order to identify the things that this individual or I as a physician need to be worried about? Again, AI has the capacity to do that.
What are some misconceptions you think about your field or things you expected going in?
So the misconceptions in general about medical genetics, right, is that it's about reproductive planning and deciding whether you want a baby with a certain thing or not, or it's about children that look odd. But I think medical genetics is really the philosopher of medicine. So in Western thought, genetics is the foundation of all medical practice. So if you pause and think about ecology, some ecology class that you might have had, health is adaptation to an ecological niche. Disease is maladaptation to an ecological niche. That summarizes genetics and medicine. So in medicine, there are only two ways to become sick: be maladapted or change the ecological niche. When you see something that's affecting thousands of people, you can almost be certain it arose from a change in the ecological niche. They didn't all mutate on a day. When you see something that's rare, it's likely a primary change in the genetics, and that variation makes that individual maladapted to the ecological niche that others uh, thrive in. So if you step back, then you can say a surgeon is a geneticist, because by doing the surgery, they're improving adaptation. A prescription, a physician who prescribes a medication, is improving adaptation. Public health is improving or stabilizing the ecological niche. So what surprised me in medical education is that that's not the approach of and the philosophy on which people are educated, but it really is the framework of everything that's done.
What advice do you think would you want to give to any high school students or first year university students interested in possibly going into medicine?
Go into it because you love it, right? And people look to you for answers. Emotionally, can be tough. Intellectually, it can be tough. But if you love it, it's the best job ever. And I, yeah, I greatly enjoy it. But it is a profession. It is something that you're dedicated to. And the Hippocratic Oath has a set of obligations. It's much different than many other jobs where you don't have that same obligation to the individual, their family, to guide them through whatever is the problem. Probably the most difficult problem is guiding your patient to death. Helping individuals die peacefully is the most challenging and difficult problem that you'll confront in medicine.
How do you deal with topics of death or like to the patients or as like on a personal level? How does that affect you and how do you deal with that?
Well, I'm not sure exactly how I deal with it, other than that, you know, you realize as the physician and as an individual, biology has a limited time. And the way I approach it with patients is frank discussion. Is the problem that they have likely to compromise their health? If it is, what adjustments do you make? Is it likely to shorten their lifespan? The one thing you learn quickly in medicine is there are no absolutes. So, predicting that somebody's going to die within a certain time frame does not work. That is not good practice, because almost certainly it won't happen. It'll be different. So emotionally, how I deal with it is pragmatically, transparently with the patient. You and I cannot bear their sorrow. I can empathize with it. I can understand it, but there's no way, in part, I can understand it, right? But I can't understand it to the degree that I can carry it for them. So there's always this gap, distance, I guess. And that's coming to understand that, what that distance is, and that I can't change fate. And accepting that allows one to deal with these difficult situations.
See, we saw on your LinkedIn profile that you also listed pediatrics. Can you talk about how that ties into your work as a medical geneticist?
Okay, so when I finished as my training for medical degree and my PhD, then you have an option of residencies to pursue at the other side. So I initially trained in pediatrics, and then at that time, medical genetics was not a residency, so it was a subsequent fellowship. So I had made up my mind before going into residency that I was headed to medical genetics. So you have a choice of many different disciplines, and for the residency, and I chose pediatrics because I like kids. I like playing with them. And yeah, and I leveraged that or used that for many different experiences, including, working in various pediatric clinics in the center of Seattle, working in the bush hospitals in Alaska, and then eventually went on to train in medical genetics.
Could you talk about a little more on your process of getting into medical school and how you made your application strong to stand out?
Well, the world's evolved since I did that, but the I think the first part is excellence, right? Excellence academically, and second is experience showing that you have interest in people and caring for them. So those are really two of the big things that uh, are looked at by universities. Now, how difficult it's to get in varies with economic cycles, because at sometimes there's many more applicants than there are at other times. And my observation, with UBC, right, is that people often need to apply for a couple of cycles. But I've also known people here to get in on their first application. But those who did get in on their first application were excellent. And they had clearly documented that excellence in both in their activities and in their academics.
So what would you recommend for students that want to pursue their interest but are like currently struggling to find areas to go to?
I mean, interests, explain a little bit more. So if they're struggling to find a place to pursue their interest, or what exactly did you mean?
Like for example, if a student's interested in genetics, like what would you recommend for them to do to maybe show that for them to develop more of their interests and give them a chance to ex- explore new areas?
Oh, okay. So there's various, if we stay just local, right, there's various summer programs that you can do that allow you to do research at the university or at one of the research institutes, or you can volunteer with someone. Yeah, so over time, what I've observed is students, often in undergrad, will apply for these summer programs and or do a co-op that allows them to work with researchers or volunteer to work with somebody who's in their area of interest. And then you have to figure out, how do you document that? How do you show that you really accomplished something during that time? So when people volunteer with me, usually I give them something that they can make a publication out of. So if you realize so why is that so powerful? 85% of research is never published. So if as a student you have the discipline, the persistence, and the insight to write it up, communicate it, and get it published, that's a major accomplishment. And that sets you aside from many others who might have volunteered to do something, and that volunteering is good, and it demonstrates a dedication, but it doesn't demonstrate that next step.
I think that'll be good. So thank you everyone for listening to episode 2 of Paging the Pod. Thank you, Dr. Boerkoel, for joining us today. Do you have any last words of anything?
Choose what you're interested in. Be excited about it. You have to wake up every morning and go do it. So, don't pick something that you regret. Have fun.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.